This is Real Estate Rookie episode 227.
I was living in an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment for many years in East Williamsburg. And although I didn't own the apartment, I guess I was kind of house hacking in a sense that me and my husband, boyfriend at the time, would live in one room and we would rent out the other room. And we were there for a very long time. And there just came a point where I was like, we've got to buy. Like, this is just crazy. The prices are going up. So we ended up buying a co-op in Brooklyn, and that was a game changer. I was like, oh man, it's possible for us to buy. And then after that, that's when I really got the bug. Then I was like, okay, I'm ready to buy more. And of course, New York City, I was like, I better look elsewhere in order to start this sooner rather than later. And that kind of kicked off the journey.
My name is Ashley Kerr, and I am here with my co-host, Tony Robinson.
And welcome to the Real Estate Rookie Podcast, where every week, twice a week, we give you the inspiration, information, and stories you need to hear to kickstart your investing journey. And I want to start today's episode by shouting out one of our rookie audience members, Sarah Frice. Sarah left a podcast review for us on Apple, and she says, absolutely amazing. I highly recommend listening to this podcast for some inspiration and to hear valuable tips on how to get started in real estate investing. And Sarah, that's why we do it, because we want to inspire people, want to help people get started. So if you are an avid listener, if you're a part of the rookie community, and you haven't left us a review yet, ask yourself, what are you doing with your life? Because the more reviews we get, the more people we can find, the more people that find us, the more people we can help. And that is our goal. So Ashley Kerr, I know you got your mom in there with you today. Seems like it's a different kind of podcasting day.
Yeah, so my mom's actually sitting at my kitchen counter now, patiently or impatiently waiting, she said, for us to finish. So, I have my mom live in the studio today. How exciting. So I guess I have to give a shout out to my mom, right? Isn't that what you do?
Yeah. Once you've made it, you got to give a shout out to your mom. She's the first one. But I'm excited for today's episode. We've got Mackenzie Grate on the podcast, and Mackenzie, first, she's just like a ball of energy. I love her enthusiasm for real estate investing, but she's also a hustler. She's got a full-time job as an assistant principal. She's an agent on the nights and the weekends, and she's also a real estate investor who's done, I think, multiple different strategies in the world of real estate investing already. So love her approach and her story.
Yeah, and she kind of goes through these rules and, touches on accountability, like trusting yourself, property management, all these things that she kind of defines for us as to what has really helped her become the investor that she is today and how she got started. And then she also touches on what it looks like at home with her spouse, how they've built their business and what roles they each play in that business and like in their household too. So I think that's really nice to touch on sometimes. And I think some people struggle with that as to what's okay, what's not okay, how to get your spouse on board, what if they're not on board, what if they don't have your support, things like that. So I think listen to this episode and that might help you find some clarity on that.
Yeah, she also does a really good job about halfway through talking about how she broke through the fear that she had about getting started. And I think that we have just a really in-depth conversation around how to get over that. So if you're struggling from analysis paralysis right now, this is a great episode for you on how to get started.
And also, we had some technical difficulties during this episode, so we are actually finishing the recording at another date. So for you guys watching on YouTube, it's going to work out flawlessly for Tony because he's always in the same spot and he always has the same black t-shirt. But me, I find a different place to record every single week, it seems, and I probably will not even remember what I was wearing today to wear it again when this is finished recording. So So if you notice that change on YouTube, that is why, just some technical difficulties. But we get to talk to Mackenzie again. So that's like the great part about it.
Actually, no, that's not what you're supposed to say. You're like a celebrity, and celebrities always have to do like an outfit change halfway through whatever's happening. So that's what it is.
From now on, for all the intros, I'm going to, make you and our producer patiently wait while I change outfits. Going to touch up on my makeup.
Well, Mackenzie, welcome to the Real Estate Rookie Podcast. We are so excited to have you. Before we, get into the nitty gritty of the real estate investing side, just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you for having me. I'm Mackenzie Grate. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I invest upstate, and during the week, I'm an assistant principal at a middle school here in East New York. And then nights and weekends, I am a real estate agent / investor.
Wow, so you're just a little busy, huh?
Just a smidge.
Yeah. So assistant principal, real estate investor, and then you said you're an agent as well?
Yep, I also sell real estate. That started during the pandemic.
Got it. So give us a backstory, Mackenzie. How does an assistant principal get caught up in the world of real estate investing?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a well-known secret that we don't get paid a lot. We do it for the love of the job, not necessarily the paycheck. So I always grew up with a single dad. He did a lot of construction and whatnot. So I was always interested in buying real estate. And then once I moved to New York City and got started in education, I realized that dream was going to be a little bit harder to attain if I didn't figure out something on the side to push me towards that. So I, doing research and whatnot, I looked into real estate and it just seemed like a perfect fit. So I started to invest myself. And then, like many people during the pandemic, I did a whole bunch of research and really re-examined my life and decided I also wanted to sell real estate. And yeah, since then it's just really snowballed.
Did you get your license first before you bought your first investment, or you invested first and then decided to get your license?
I invested first in a town that I had never been to.
Been there.
Yes.
Well, that's really cool. But with the licensing side, just real quick, because this is something rookies always ask is, should I get my license? Does it benefit you as an investor? So can you kind of talk about the pros and cons of that real quick?
Absolutely. There's benefits and there's definitely drawbacks. So different states have different rules, but in New York State, you have to be very careful if you're a realtor, especially going after off-market deals, because there is a theft of equity law. So I have to fully disclose that I'm a realtor when I'm purchasing any sort of property. So in that sense, it's a little bit of a hindrance sometimes in finding off-market deals. But I will say this, it's definitely helped grow my network. It's taught me a lot about houses and what to look for. It's really just helped keep me in the game, so to speak. So I would recommend it if it's something that you're passionate about. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we had David Green on the podcast not too long ago, and his recommendation to folks was, don't get your real estate license just because you want to be a real estate investor. Only get your real estate license if you also feel that you have a passion for helping people buy and sell real estate, because the skill sets, even though they're both in the world of real estate investing, the skill sets to be a super successful agent are definitely very different than the skill sets needed to become a very successful real estate investor. But for some folks, it definitely, those two worlds combine and mesh really well.
Yeah, and for me, the idea was just that it would help accelerate that cash that I have to invest. So that was part of it. I was like, man, if I could do this on the side, which I realized too, it's very hard to do it part-time. It really is all-encompassing. But it definitely helped speed up my acquisition in terms of my portfolio.
So on that note, Mackenzie, if you wouldn't mind, just share with us what your portfolio looks like today. How many units do you have, and how long have you been investing?
Absolutely. So I started in 2017 up in Kingston. I have 2 single-family homes there, a fourplex, a duplex, and then an Airbnb that I just added this year. And then I own my primary here in Brooklyn.
So with your primary, when you purchased that, did you have any idea of real estate investing, or was it just an emotional purchase? I need this house, or was there some kind of strategy in purchasing that property?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I was living in an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment for many years in East Williamsburg. And although I didn't own the apartment, I guess I was kind of house hacking in a sense that me and my husband, boyfriend at the time, would live in one room and we would rent out the other room. And we were there for a very long time. And there just came a point where I was like, we've got to buy. This is just crazy. The prices are going up. So we ended up buying a co-op in Brooklyn, and that was a game changer. I was like, oh man, it's possible for us to buy. And then after that, that's when I really got the bug. Then I was like, okay, I'm ready to buy more. And of course, New York City, I was like, I better look elsewhere in order to start this sooner rather than later. And that kind of kicked off the journey.
Mackenzie, you said that you bought a co-op in Brooklyn. I'm not familiar. Every time I talk to my friends from New York, Ashley taught me about wells and winterizing your HVAC unit, whatever the heck that means. So what is a co-op? I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah, so they're usually, I would say, in big cities, but essentially I own a share of the building. I don't own my actual unit. Of course, I can still do all of the things that I want, like fixing up the unit. You just have to run it by a board. So essentially, there's a board that oversees all of the decisions. There tends to be rules and maintenance fees. Some people like that, some people don't. I personally like it because it definitely helps maintain the value of my property, and there's someone else who's getting out there doing the snow blowing and like taking out the trash and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's just a way to live in a community that's similar to condos, except you don't own the physical space. You own a share in the building, essentially.
What is like the benefit of that? So when you want to move out of your unit, are you selling your share then of the property, or how does that work?
Yeah, your shares are linked to your specific unit. So it's essentially the same thing. You're selling your unit. Whoever is buying those shares is going to be moving into your unit. I think the benefit of it is that it requires a lot less maintenance because you don't have to do that. Also, it really protects your property value because the board is looking out for the best interests of the overall building. So for example, and looking back, you always rethink certain decisions, but I can't sublet out my apartment. And part of that is because they don't want a lot of turnover. They want people who are buying into the building, sticking around a long time, have that pride of ownership. So they put certain rules in place in order to protect the overall investment of the building. And they also, on your behalf, negotiate good deals. So like, for example, Spectrum. Our whole building has a special agreement with them, so it's super cheap. But they're able to do that because there's like 500 units in the building.
All right, so a couple questions here. Sorry, my head's spinning. So I've this is something new to me, which doesn't happen often on this podcast. But so with this co-op, and you mentioned the board, who elects those board members, and are they also residents of that building?
Yes, we all do. And actually in my building, they take it very seriously. When I tell you they take it seriously, like they hire a company to come in and like make sure the votes are correct. We've got one of those old fashioned voting machines where you like pull down the lever. But it's legit, yeah. Anyone in the building can get nominated and run, and then you give a speech, and there's like an election period every single November. And I think, I don't know the exact number. I think there's like maybe 9 total, and it's 3-year terms, and every year 3 more people come up for election. And anyone in the building can, look in on the meetings. We've been doing it on Zoom lately. And in theory, you can have a say if you want. But it definitely also, I appreciate the people on the board because it tends to be older folks who are retired, who have the time, who are really excited about it. And our building specifically, they do more than just take care of the place. They also like throw parties. Like we have a Christmas party every year, usually happens in January. So you get to know everyone, we have dog events because a lot of people in the building have dogs.
So it's almost like an HOA, but like on, I guess kind of a different setup. So last question on the co-op, from an appraisal standpoint, is your unit appraised the same way a non-co-op unit would be appraised, or is there a different process related to that as well?
It's the same process, but I would say they would use a co-op unit to do the appraisals. So it wouldn't be a condo would not be a comp that they would pull for that. And the reason for that being is just condos tend to appreciate quicker in value. I would say, at least here in New York City, maybe it's different elsewhere. But yeah, so they're going to pull similar stuff from other co-ops in the area.
How did this, like having your first primary unit, kind of set the tone or the pace for you jumping into real estate? Did it play a role at all as to all of a sudden you have, a ton of appreciation or equity in your property?
Yeah, so for me, it helped me get over analysis paralysis, which I know many people suffer from. I myself was a sufferer. As soon as I bought this place, we were very nervous because we had lived so dirt cheap, sharing this room in an apartment that had never gone up in rent. And we're like, can we afford this? I don't know. We're running the numbers over and over. And so finally, when we moved in and we realized not only could we afford it, but we had a lot of extra money that we would continue to save, that's when it kind of hit me. I was like, Dude, I waited way too long to do this. Imagine if I had done this before, where I could be now. So once we realized that, it was less than a year until I bought my first rental upstate. I was dead serious at that point. I was like, okay, all this extra money that we have now, because we still are living well below our means, that's going directly towards our savings account so that we can buy our first property.
Okay, so you had mentioned earlier that you bought a property in a town you've never been to. Was this your first investment property then?
Yep.
Okay, so how did you find the town and what made you decide on that market?
Yeah, so I Googled the 3 fastest growing job markets in New York State at the time. And 2 of them were near you, Ashley. And I was like, that's just too far for me to travel. The third one was Kingston, New York. And that's only 90 miles north of the city. So I literally called up my friend with a car because I didn't have a car at the time. And I said, hey, you want to drive me upstate and I'll treat you to lunch and we'll shop for houses? And he's always game. He was like, absolutely, let's do it. So we drove up there, and I love the realtor that helped us. She's still a good friend to this day. She took me seriously. You know, it was one of those things where like I came with my numbers. I had a short list of properties I wanted to look at, and she was just like, let's do it. And sure enough, I put in an offer on that first one, and I have never looked back. I was able to get it. It was awesome.
Mackenzie, I love your energy on this, and I hope everybody listening to this is just getting pumped up to grab a friend and go driving for dollars looking for properties after listening to this. So then tell us more about getting that first deal of just how did you get comfortable with, okay, like I live this far away. I feel like there's that fear sometimes. And even me, I've only invested besides in Seattle around my area in my market. How did you get comfortable that you couldn't physically be at the property every single day? And not that you need to, but it still like sits in the back of your mind, like getting comfortable with investing out of state or out of your market.
Yeah, I mean, I always knew I would need a property manager, just even with my day job. Like, there's no way I could be like addressing stuff in the middle of the day. So that was part of the numbers always. That was part of the plan always. So that's what made me feel comfortable. Granted, my first property manager, I did end up parting ways after a couple of years because I learned some hard lessons about that. But for me, it was just, you know, if you get a property manager, ultimately they're responsible for taking care of it, and I could still go about and do whatever else I needed to do.
Just to like clarify one thing, and I want to make sure we don't gloss over this. So it was the purchase of your initial primary residence, that co-op, that took away the fear that you had that was associated with buying real estate. And once you got over that initial fear, that's when you felt confident enough to move forward with buying that investment property. Am I recapping that the right way?
Yeah, I think before I bought that primary, I didn't think it was possible. You know what I mean? So once I bought that first one, I was like, wait a minute, I just went through this process. If I can buy one for me, I can certainly buy another one and rent it out, you know, and then just kind of keep that ball rolling.
And I think that's like, you know, it makes me think of Dave Ramsey, right? And regardless of what, you know, I know a lot of real estate investors feel different ways about Dave Ramsey and what he preaches, but I think part of what's made him so successful are these baby steps that he has to financial freedom. And it's like anyone can, even if they can't, I guess, believe that it's possible to become a millionaire or have, you know, generational wealth, what they can believe is, can I pay down this one credit card? And because he's built this framework around these baby steps, I think that's why some people have bought into what he's preaching. And it's like what you did, Mackenzie, is the same thing. Like you said, I want to be a real estate investor, but that idea seems a little bit too scary or impossible at the moment. But what's a smaller step I can take that is possible? And for you, it's like, okay, let's go buy this co-op. Let's go buy this house for us to live in. And once you take that first baby step, you're like, that actually wasn't nearly as bad as we thought it was going to be. Now let's take that next step. So I think it's such an instructional lesson for people that are listening that, yeah, maybe the idea of being a big real estate mogul doesn't seem possible right now, but what is the next step that is possible? Is it meeting that agent? Is it getting pre-approved? Is it walking that property? Whatever that next step is that you are comfortable with, identify that and use that to kind of catapult you forward.
Absolutely.
So Mackenzie, I want to talk about your husband with this. Were you married already when you went and purchased this property, or did you purchase this before you were married?
Yes, both of them, we were married at that point. We actually got married and we still had a roommate at our other apartment. But yeah, no, we bought this primary together. And then once we bought our first investment property, I kind of told him that we were going to do it. And luckily I have a super supportive husband. He definitely asked questions and was nervous. But I went up there and I came home that night and I said, "Hey, hon, we're going to buy an investment property."
And he just said, okay.
He said, okay. He was definitely nervous. I am definitely more the person who's going to go out there and take a risk. He asked a lot of questions about the numbers, where it was at. But ultimately, I was able to show him, and this was another step that helped me overcome analysis paralysis, is worst case scenario, in this situation, if they didn't pay a dime, whoever our tenants were, we would be able to cover the rent. So I showed him that, and I was like, okay, that would be really bad. That hopefully won't happen. But if so, then I guess we'll pay the rent while they're not paying.
So how active is his role now? I mean, is he active in deal analysis or, handling tenants or anything like that?
No, he's not really involved at all. It's just not his thing. Of the two of us, I'm more of the handier person. I was raised by a single dad. He does the laundry and the cooking and the pug watching. But yeah, it's mostly me who does the investment, and I kind of let him know when we're going to buy something or when I'm thinking about buying it. I always run it by him. But most of the time, he doesn't even see the property until the day we close, and he's up there to sign the papers.
That's very similar to my situation. Like, we have separate things. He has the farm. I have, my real estate investing. And it's at the point now, it's like, we have new tractors. Oh, you went and bought new tractors? I bought a house last week too. Like, it's not even a comparison anymore. You don't have to tell. It's just like we're running our own businesses, and it's not affecting, our the family money. Like, it's not, as long as it's not like affecting the kids or anything like that, it doesn't matter. We're operating our businesses. And I think sometimes it can kind of get like, this real estate investing is risking so much that you need to discuss every single thing with your spouse. And this will definitely vary upon relationship. But if you looked at somebody that owns, say a construction company or whatever, and their company goes out and buys a new bulldozer or whatever, that's part of their operations, and that's going to make them more money because they have this bulldozer now to be more efficient. Are those business owners, are they going and asking their spouse, is it okay if I spend that money to do this? And I would say a lot of the time the answer is probably no. At least businesses I've been involved in where it's a business, it's this is a business expense, this isn't a family matter. And maybe it should be, maybe it shouldn't, I don't know. But I think that you have the support and that your spouse trusts you to make those decisions, is they don't have to be involved. And I remember talking to an investor before who was really struggling. I try to get my wife involved. I try to get her to do the bookkeeping or do something, or maybe communicate with the tenants, and she just doesn't want to do with it. That is okay. That's fine. You can hire somebody to do that. You don't, as much as it would be nice to get that free labor from your wife, you don't need to have her involved. It's the support and just the trust that you are going to make good decisions. And if there's bad decisions made too, that they are going to stand behind you and say, okay, how can I help you so that we can, remediate this, we can fix this.
Totally. That whole accountability piece, I think, is one of the things that I had to learn along the way. Is if I'm convincing my husband to jump into something that he's not comfortable with, or, this isn't his thing, he doesn't enjoy it like I do, then I have to be in a place where I'm ready to take full accountability for all of the decisions and work through the problems, because problems will arise. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to help, but at the same time, I need to figure it out in order to grow as an entrepreneur myself.
Yeah, Mackenzie, you mentioned the word accountability, and I want to go back to that. But before I do, just to piggyback on what you were saying, Ashley, about the spouse piece, it's so many rookies who are listening, they I think mix up the terms on board with involved, and so many spouses so many real estate investors want their spouses on board, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be involved. if you have that trust between you and your spouse, that's them being on board, right? If they're saying, hey, I trust you to make the right decisions, I trust you to go out and buy that right property, that's them being on board. Them being involved would say, hey, let's analyze this deal together. Or, hey, you go find the deals and I'll go manage them. And there's different levels, right? So you can have the spouse that is like against real estate investing, that doesn't want to do it at all. You can have the spouse that says, I'm okay with doing it, I just don't really care for it, but you go do it on your own. And then like the third level would be like, hey, let's do this together. So for the rookies that are listening, understand which one of those dynamics fits your situation, and don't try and force your spouse into it if they're giving you their blessing, but they just don't want to be your partner.
And Mackenzie, too, you mentioned that, your husband does the cooking, the cleaning, it takes care of the pups. Like, that's a huge benefit. That's like so nice that you have that. You don't have to worry about that, and you can focus on the real estate investing too. So I think there's a lot of different things your spouse or partner can be doing for you that is actually helping you, because you don't have to take time away from real estate investing to do those things. And for the people who just tuned out for the last 5-10 minutes when we were talking about having a spouse or partner, if you are single, think about what your goals are and find somebody who has a skill set that can help you with whatever your real estate dreams are. So you want to build a house from ground up, date a contractor.
But Ash, I think even if you don't have a spouse, I think the idea of like the supply into partnerships is just as true. Yep. It's like, say that you have a money partner, and it's like, what does that dynamic look like? The last thing I want to mention on the spouse piece, or just like the trust piece, is that I agree with you, Ashley, about like, you gave the example of you and Dave with, him with the farm and you with the real estate business. But I think that level of like, you do your thing increases as the business scales, right? So like if you think about like Amazon, Jeff Bezos, when he bought Whole Foods, do you think he went to his wife at the time and said, hey honey, I'm thinking about buying Whole Foods, like what do you? No, absolutely not, right? Like Jeff Bezos is running Amazon. But when Jeff Bezos left his job and he told his wife, hey, I want to take our savings and fund this little online bookstore, are you okay with that? I'm sure there was a very in-depth discussion they had at that point. So I think for a lot of folks that are just starting, if you're taking maybe your life savings and you're putting it into real estate, there does have to be that probably, really deep discussion about what you guys want as a family. But as a business scales, and we've seen the same thing on our side as well, is that's when that trust starts to grow a little bit more and you have that higher level of autonomy.
Yeah, that's a great point, because like you'll get to the point, hopefully, where you're not using any of your family money. You're just taking cash flow from the properties you already have and then rolling that into something, or doing creative financing and no money down deals too.
My favorite moment with my husband this year was after I finished the Airbnb. He turns to me and he's like, this is up and running really well. I think we should do more of them. Because he literally was just like, he saw the fun side of it, the getting to stay upstate in the cottage and like bringing the pugs. I was like, hey, if that makes him happy and that makes him on board, I am all about that, because I don't want it to be something where it adds stress to our relationship. If this is what makes me happy, I almost look at it, yes, it's a business, but it's also more my hobby and my passion. And that's just not his hobby or his passion. So if it's separate, I'm fine with that. I would love a Chip and Joanna situation, but hey, every relationship is different,
There's business partners for that.
Yep, 100%.
Just look at my Instagram. It's all littered with my business partner, just because like that's the content, whatever. We're putting the reels out of that because we do that together. So that's why you can always find a business partner to, do those cute Chip and Joanna Gaines videos. So Mackenzie, at home, like you guys discuss your real estate investing, I'm sure, because it's so hard as a real estate investor to not talk about it. But like for myself, even I would have been investing for maybe 2 years before I even found BiggerPockets. And then I like found this community and it was like, oh my gosh, there's like-minded people out there. Who are you using for accountability, and how are you meeting like-minded individuals?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was the same thing. It was mostly books that I started off with. Then I found the podcast and other podcasts. But now it's like friends that I have at the meetup. A lot of my clients are buying investment properties. So we definitely work closely together to get them up and running. I have personal friends who are also entrepreneurs in different senses. They don't all invest in real estate, but we tend to talk regularly about like what are our goals and what do we want to accomplish this quarter and that sort of stuff. Some of it's formal meetings, others are just informal, like text. You send each other a win, or like when you're stressed out, hey, I'm about to make a really big decision. Can I just talk to you for like 5 minutes? I just need some reassurance here, and you're like clear about what it is. So yeah, it's all different places you can find it for sure.
That's like me and Tony in between podcast recordings where we have some time. It's like, okay, let's get into a therapy session here. What do we need to talk about that's going on in our real estate investing? How can we help each other?
Totally.
Okay, so you mentioned a little bit about your Airbnb property and your husband, like, let's do more of these. So tell us about that property, because I love when Tony starts to perk up and get excited about listening to someone talk about short-term rentals.
Absolutely. Well, I actually never planned on doing a short-term rental. I got to be honest. What was happening was I would go upstate and do my long-term rentals, and each one I would buy and fix up, and I would literally carry my air mattress, and that's where I would crash. So as I'm doing the project, I'd fix it up, and then after a while, it just got so exhausting moving from place to place. So I decided, you know what, maybe I should do an Airbnb, because then I'll be able to use it when I'm up there. But of course now, hindsight, 2020, the best time to rent it out is on the weekends, and usually I'm up there on the weekends. So now I have the good challenge of it being so successful that I'm like, all right, now it's always rented out, back to finding the next one, But yeah, no, I decided to do that because it just seemed like the next step. I found a property that fit the criteria purely by accident, stumbled across it, and so I was like, well, let's go ahead and try this out. Let's do it. I've read enough about it. I've learned enough about it. It's going to be more work for sure, but I know that there's enough tools out there that can really reduce how much I have to manage it directly myself. So I decided to take the jump.
Now, you talked already, Mackenzie, that you've got a busy schedule, right? You've got the real estate agent work, you've got your day job of being the assistant principal, and you said when you started the long-term rental piece that you knew you had to get a property manager in place. Are you doing the same thing for the short-term rental, or how are you managing that property?
Yeah, so this is crazy and totally counterintuitive, but actually with the short-term rental, although it involves more management, I am doing that myself because the more I realize now, like once you get it set up with all of the automations and whatnot, it really reduces the amount of managing that you do have to do. The other thing is upstate, and I don't know if it's like this all over the country, but to have a short-term rental property manager, it is significantly more expensive than a long-term rental property manager. And the one thing that I've heard over and over is like a lot of people get frustrated when that big storm hits, right? And suddenly every short-term rental needs someone out there immediately because the electricity's out, or like you got to get it plowed, and then they're like, oh, my manager's backed up because they're going to every other short-term rental. So for me, I was like, if I'm gonna put any sort of money into having a short-term rental manager, I'd need them to be 100% on board, and that's asking a lot when you really look at it, if that ever were to come to fruition. So
Mackenzie, I have to ask this because I've talked to Tony about this, even more Sarah about this, and I'm, have one Airbnb unit now, but I'm remodeling several. I'm going to have quite a few. What is your system, or what are the softwares that you're using to keep this so automated?
So this links back to also finding your perfect match elsewhere. I have a client who bought an Airbnb himself. I designed his, and he helps me with the tech on mine. So he got me all set up on Guesty and Price Labs and all of it. So it's completely automated. Turnover Airbnb, where it sends the email directly to my cleaner so she can book it. So all of that, he has 100% taken control over and just set it up for me so that it's pretty up and running. But those would be the three main ones we're using right now. And he's always, beta testing or whatever, trying out new ones and then calling me up and being like, hey, Mackenzie, I'm going to switch this over because I found out this about this. And I'm like, perfect. You just show me how to use it and we're good.
What is the one thing that you wish that you could automate with your short-term rental business that you have yet been able to?
Oh, that's a good question.
Tony, do you have an answer for that one?
So many, actually. maintenance requests. We're actually trialing some more software right now to try and automate that a little bit more. Like right now, our cleaner will either reach out to us or our handyman, but we have no good process of like tracking all the open maintenance requests across our portfolio. So that's been a challenge for us. And honestly, like if we could find some way to like automate the setup a little bit more, that would help a ton. But I don't know how you automate building furniture, so that's a bit of a challenge. But I say a big sticking point right now is like the maintenance request piece.
Yeah, I guess I only have one, so it's not a ton, and I'm up there like a lot in between. But I guess when you were talking, I was thinking about the cleaning supplies. Usually I just stock up, but sometimes there's a situation where they're like, the one thing that I didn't think to check for has run low. So some sort of system, and I'm sure there is on Amazon. I'm going to look into this afterwards of like automatic queue where it sends it out every 3 months no matter what.
So what we've done in our business, Mackenzie, and we're still trying to refine this process, but essentially we have like a minimum inventory level for each like consumable that we have. And say it's like, I don't know, the hand soap, and say we always want to have like 5 jugs of the hand soap. And once we get below 2, we'll order 5 more, and that'll get us back up, so it's like know what that repoint like level is for each inventory item. That way you never run out. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful.
Definitely.
Tony, have you looked into just using like regular long-term property management software and just using the maintenance feature on it? Like Rent Ready. I mean, they're super cheap to use them, and there's other free things too where you just put in your units in that and it's just used for the maintenance request. And you can add in your vendors, and then, the handyman or the cleaner, whoever would go in and submit the maintenance request in there. And then, you can set it up so it's emailed directly to a vendor depending on what the issue is. And you can track it all in there and see all the different tasks in the move-in. And then whoever the handyman is that does it can mark it complete.
I've actually never thought about doing that, but we just met with another company last Friday, and they have a very similar like system, it sounds like, but built specifically for Airbnbs. But it's definitely not free.
Yeah.
So or super inexpensive. So I'll have to check that out. That's a good idea.
Yeah, because I mean, if you have to get another app anyways, like you might as well use one of the super cheap property management company ones, because I feel like it would fit whatever you need to do. Just the thing is that it's just another app you need, but if you have to do that anyways,
we got to do it
with
anyway.
This other one,
Yeah, that's a good point, Ash. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, so Mackenzie, you've done short-term rental, long-term rental. Any other kind of strategies we haven't heard about yet?
Well, I'm getting ready to do my first flip.
Awesome.
I'm excited. I actually have always been like a buy and hold type of gal, but my broker does a lot of flips and she wants to partner on one. So we are currently actively looking for that. And I'm, when an opportunity like that comes up, you take it. She's awesome at it, and I know I'll learn a lot, so I'm going to do it.
So Mackenzie, like one of the things that we talk about a lot on the show is like having your buy box. And I was pretty specific on that when I started in my long-term rental investing journey, and even on the short-term rental side, like within each market, we have certain kind of properties that we look for. But you've kind of, you've bounced around a little bit. You did the long-term rental, the short-term rental, now you've got the flip, and each one of those probably has like a different property that fits that mold. So do you believe in the whole buy box strategy, or I guess what's been your approach and how you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did early on, and I think that helps overcome analysis paralysis. If you're someone who double, triple thinks through everything, then get that checklist going. My first 2 properties were single family homes, and I had a very strict criteria. In fact, they ended up being 2 blocks away from each other just because it was that strict of a criteria. And then when the fourplex came along, it was in the area, but it wasn't a single family. And I was like, I don't know if I should be doing this. I've read about it, but like it doesn't meet what I really was looking at. And my accountability partner, my friend Ann, was like, just do it. It's clearly a good deal. You're talking about it. You won't stop talking about it. So just go ahead and do it. It'll work itself out. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. This is the biggest one yet, you know? And of course, it ended up working out. There were definitely new challenges that presented. And actually, as I was fixing up one of the units in there, a duplex came on sale a couple blocks over. And my other colleague, I had reached out and I was like, hey, that duplex, you know, joking around, do you want to buy it splitsies? And she laughed. And then the next day she called me back and she's like, yes, I do. And I was like, okay, so I guess it looks like now I'm going to buy a duplex, you know? So it started off very rigid with the buy box, but as I've moved along, I've definitely, at least for me, recognized that I have to let go of some of the control in terms of those checklists because the market is changing, because certain deals come by. I don't want to be in a position where I'm waiting so much for that one specific type of deal that I let others' opportunities pass that I could learn from. I've read a lot. I've spoken to a lot of investors. I have a lot of resources now. So if it is venturing into a new area, I think I'll be able to figure it out. You know, so it's worth it at this point in my career to just keep making steps rather than waiting for something specific to come along.
So what you're saying is like kind of like trust what you know and like follow your intuition. Like what do you think about that? Is it all like sticking and staying on the same path, or it's like it's okay to vary in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's trusting in yourself that you're going to be able to figure it out and that you're going to be able to solve the problem. And I think the more that you just dive in any way, shape, or form, it helps you to develop that sort of gut feeling of like, all right, this is a pretty good deal. Here's some things that could go wrong. Something's probably going to come out of nowhere that I have no idea about. But I've made it through some other storms. I'll figure it out. Or if I don't, I now have at least a network where I can be like, calling certain people who deal with certain things, or I've heard them deal with certain things, and say, hey, how do I deal with this? I don't know about a septic tank. This is my first property with one. What do I do? It seems like it needs some attention. Help. Who do I call? You know? So just trusting in yourself that you have the capability to figure it out, or at least find the people who can help you figure it out.
So in this case, would that be your property management company? Like asking them about that? Like septic issues, things like that?
Definitely, they are a great resource. I would say my broker, she's done a lot of that, and she's usually the first person I call or text. I also have neighbors now in the area who, like, they all have septic tanks too, so I'll walk over to John's house and be like, actually, there was a situation with a bear. And I literally went over to John's after I saw that, and I was like, how do we get rid of that bear? He's like, for starters, don't throw food out. It's like, okay, noted.
Was that your first bear incident?
It definitely was. And it was one of those where like my husband had thrown out a can of soup. And this is like, by the way, this was winter, early, when bears should be hibernating. And I see on the camera a bear saunter through the next morning, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I showed it to him, and he's like, yeah, I might have thrown out some soup back there.
Tony, I think you've had a similar thing happen at one of your Airbnbs, right? I saw it on your Instagram.
We've had quite a few bear encounters at our cabins out there. And yeah, you know, they're like curious bears looking for some meal. We actually had a bear that almost tried to get into one of our guests' car. Like they didn't want to leave the property because the guest was like clawing to get in. So it's we've all had those experiences. Better than a beaver though.
Yeah, actually, we haven't seen a beaver in so long at the property that we think they like left because Daryl would keep digging out their dam and they haven't come back. So I don't know. We're hoping that it worked, but it was like it could have been like a cartoon. Like every day Daryl would go there and be so mad because they dammed it back up with mud and sticks. He had to get a shovel. His shovel would break as he tried to dam it. It was really funny, actually. I probably should put like a collage of the videos together that I've taken of them getting so frustrated. But yeah, we haven't seen them in a while. So we're hoping they're moved to somewhere else. But okay, so you guys heard us talk about in the intro as to we were having a couple technical difficulties, and I just wanted a reason for an outfit change because I still have no idea what I was wearing when we originally recorded this, so I can't think back a couple days. But so we left off talking about the bear story, Daryl with the beavers. So now, Mackenzie, let's talk a little bit more about that bear incident and if that happened when you had a guest at the property. Since you're self-managing that, how would you have handled a situation like that? Or maybe you had a circumstance where something like that happened.
Yeah, so actually, I would say probably a couple months later, there was a bear on the property, and I had this lovely British couple who were staying there, and they texted me a photo of the bear. At first I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, just please make sure you're inside. Please don't leave any food out. And they're like, oh, no, darling, it was magical. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. So, pretty much what I do now is I updated the book, made it very much more bold, like make sure you keep food inside, and just kind of like warn them, especially right now there's a drought upstate. So a lot of the bears are coming down to the lower lands looking for food and water. So I also send a quick reminder text as people are checking in regards to like the different things they need to do according to the drought. And definitely watching out for the bears is one of them. Not that there's a ton, but
My dad used to take us up to Canada when we were younger, and we'd go camping and stuff. And they used to have like the big garbage dumps where like people would take their garbage and dump it into these huge dumpsters. Well, like at dusk, the bears would come and they would pick out of the dumpster. So people would come and drive their car there. It's like you're at the drive-in movies and sit and watch all the bears do this. Well, my mom had this T-Bird top Camaro, and the bear bit the side of it, and there was a bite mark in it. And to this day, my dad never let her get it fixed. She had to keep it in there because he thought it was so cool. Okay, well, enough about bears. Mackenzie, I'm going to take us to our rookie request line. And this is where anyone listening can give us a call at 1-888-5-ROOKIE and leave us a voicemail. And Tony and I may choose it to play on the show as a question for our guests. So, Mackenzie, are you ready for today's question?
I am.
Okay, today's question is from Giselle. I am calling from Brooklyn, New York. I'm a registered nurse that is interested in building my real estate portfolio. So I have been looking at homes in Connecticut as well as in Baltimore because those are areas that I can get to. And my question is, I work as a registered nurse, and my plan is to try to work part-time as much as possible while I continue to develop my portfolio. What exactly do you guys do for health insurance? Do you just do private, pay it out of your pocket? Is there something specific for real estate investors or entrepreneurs? I would love to hear answers to this question.
Yeah, so that's actually resonates deeply. So I work in the public school system, and I'm getting ready to leave. This is my last year, and that has been one of the main things that has held me back, that fear of not having health insurance. My husband got a new job that has better insurance, so full disclosure, I'm going to jump on his insurance after this. But I have a lot of friends who have already left their jobs, and a couple of things they do. I have one friend who works very part-time at Starbucks just to get the health insurance. And then I also have some friends who just buy it privately through Obamacare or whatnot, and they just go through the different packages. A lot of them will do the high deductible programs. That way it's cheaper each month, if they're fairly healthy. But I guess if you don't have really good health, then you probably want to look for a part-time job or some sort of company that will provide it and help you out along the way, so you can work a few hours there but still maintain that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mackenzie. I think one other option, is if you're leaving your full-time job, I don't know if this is a federal thing or maybe it's just California, but there's something called COBRA, and COBRA allows you to continue your employer's health insurance for I think up to 18 months. It is pretty stupid expensive. At least it was for me when I left my job, but that's an option for folks. And what me and my wife do, since we're both self-employed, is we use Covered California, which is California's version of Obamacare. So we're able to get it through the marketplace. And like you said, we have a relatively high deductible, but that helps us keep our monthly costs down.
Yeah, that COBRA, I'm pretty sure, is nationwide because that's offered in New York State too. And usually when you're on a health insurance plan for a company, is they pay a portion of that, and that's part of your benefit. So when you do take that option, when you leave the job, you're now responsible for your employee portion plus the employer's portion. So I still work the very bare minimum for another investor, basically to pay my health insurance. I get, I think, maybe $12 direct deposited into my bank account every week, and the rest of it goes to pay my health insurance for my family. So, it's definitely, I think what I would recommend is if you have your W-2, like stay with it for the health insurance, or like figure out ways that you can reduce it, because it is so expensive to go out on your own. But if you really are decided you don't want anything to do with your job, you don't want to pay, COBRA through it, you don't even like the health insurance plan, I would go to the FIRE community. So Financial Independence Retire Early. Go into that community, search that hashtag, personal finance, anything like that, on Instagram or Google, different podcasts, and they are always talking about health insurance, because these are people who are retiring early and they can't get, Medicare or Medicaid. I never remember which one is for people that are retired, that are senior citizens. So I would recommend looking into those kind of groups and seeing what people are getting, because there are co-ops where you join a co-op basically and you pay into it, and it's like a pool of money. So everybody pays into it, and it may depend on what your, health history is. But if one person has, a medical event, they draw from that pool of money to pay for that person. So you may never use it. You may use it, just like any insurance, really. So those are some different things that you guys can look at if you are in need of health insurance or trying to figure out what to do if you do leave your job.
And I would also say talk to your CPA. So my CPA specializes in real estate investors. So sometimes it helps to just kind of sit down and talk through the numbers with her. There's the HSA and different programs where you can set aside money. So just talk to one of them and kind of see what their other clients are doing, or if they have any suggestions that maybe you can use as well.
Yeah, and just as a quick note, there is an entire Bigger Pockets Money episode on this topic. And it's episode 279. So if you're looking for like a deeper discussion around this, episode 279 of the Money Podcast.
Okay, so Mackenzie, we now have our rookie exam for you. The first question is, what is one actionable thing rookies should do after listening to this episode?
I would say set down your specific goal. Right? It doesn't have to be if you're really wanting to start out, put pen to paper and put it into writing. I'm an educator, so we're all about SMART goals, where there's like an actionable time frame and it's very specific and measurable. So I would just start with that, and it doesn't have to be a perfect goal. That goal may change over time, but just getting pen to paper and setting a deadline for yourself.
That's awesome. All right. So next question is, what's one tool, software, app, or system that you use in your business?
I'm using Guesty right now to help manage my Airbnb, and that is extremely helpful. I think I mentioned earlier about how it's kind of counterintuitive that I'm self-managing my Airbnb, which takes more work than my long-term rentals. But one of the reasons why I'm able to do it is because Guesty is like super automated. It sends out a text as soon as they book. It sends out a text to my cleaner. It puts it on my calendar. So it's pretty awesome.
I was the same way. We had several long-term rentals that we use property managers for all of them, but we've self-managed literally every single one of our Airbnbs as well. So who knows why? I don't know why. I think it's because it was so expensive to get a short-term rental property manager that I was like, I'm not paying someone 40% to do this. Like I'm going to figure this out myself.
Totally. And what I've heard, at least upstate, is as soon as that big storm hits, like they're nowhere to be found because they have too many Airbnbs, and that's really when you need someone there. So I'm like, all right, let's just not plan on that.
Okay, and the last question is, where do you plan on being in 5 years?
Well, definitely retired from the DOE. Sorry. I plan to have, of course, more investment properties. I also want to do more interior designing. So I have a lot of clients now who I'm helping them get their Airbnbs up and running, and they're asking me to design it and kind of train them and coach them through the process. So I hope to be doing a lot more of that in the near future.
Awesome. Well, I want to take us over to our last segment, which is the Rookie Rockstar. So again, if you guys want to get highlighted as the Rockstar, post in the Real Estate Rookie Facebook group and the Bigger Pockets forums. You can slide in mine and Ashley's DMs. We're always looking for good stories. Today's Rookie Rockstar is Nydia Intuda, and hopefully I said your last name the right way, Nydia. So Nydia says, I couldn't wait to be able to post this. I closed on my first rental property, which is 2 units in Florida, and I represent myself as a realtor. Thanks so much to this group for the inspiration and the tips. And the group she's talking about is Real Estate Rookie Facebook group. She says, I've inherited tenants and I'm open to keeping the one in the smaller unit that the former owner says is a good tenant. They've been there for a couple of years with no rent increases and paying medium rent. And they just did the binder, but they're looking for ways to respond. So anyway, congratulations to you, Nydia, on getting those first 2 units in Florida. It's an amazing accomplishment, and we're excited to see where you go from there.
And also, thank you for sharing your win with us, too. I think it gives us motivation and everybody else that reads it and sees it that this is possible to do. So thank you to everyone else who does post in the Real Estate Rookie Facebook group. And if you haven't joined yet, make sure you check it out at Real Estate Rookie on Facebook. And you can also subscribe to us on YouTube at Real Estate Rookie. Well, Mackenzie, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. And thank you for joining us twice so we could complete the episode despite the technical difficulties. We won't say whose fault it was, Tony, but we blame everything on Tony here.
Gotcha. Oh, yes, Tony, come on.
So, Mackenzie, could you let everyone know where they can find out some more information about you and possibly reach out to you?
Absolutely. I would say I'm most active on Instagram, Mac of All Trades NY. And I also have a website /blog, macofalltradesny.com.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm Ashley at Wealth from Rentals, and he's Tony at Tony J. Robinson. And we will be back with another episode on Saturday.
Still, yeah.